Japan opposition parties form new united bloc. Singapore PM removes Workers' Party Secretary General. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today with me, Mohana Priya. Japan's main opposition, the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan and Komeito, have agreed to establish a new political party, their leaders said on Thursday, in an attempt to present a united front against ruling parties that they see as too right-leaning. The announcement comes a day after Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi conveyed to ruling party executives her plans to dissolve parliament next week and call a snap election to capitalize on her high support rate. Takaichi is considering 8th February for the vote, as quoted by various sources. Komeito ended its 26-year partnership with Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, last October over what it viewed as the LDP's failure to respond to a political funding scandal. The LDP subsequently formed a coalition government with the right-leaning Japan Innovation Party, known as Ishin, paving the way for Takaichi to become the country's first female prime minister. Komeito Chief Tetsuo Saito, when met by reporters, said his party does not intend to create a party for all-out confrontation with the Liberal Democratic Party. Saito also said that the new party would initially be led jointly by CDP leader Yoshihiko Noda and himself. The partnership was also unnerved by Takaichi's previous harsh rhetoric on China and her regular visits to a Tokyo shrine that honors Japan's war dead, including war criminals. Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong has removed Workers' Party Secretary General Pritam Singh as leader of the opposition with immediate effect. The move comes a day after Parliament passed a motion expressing regret over Singh's conduct, saying his conviction and actions made him unsuitable to remain in the role. In a statement, Wong said Singh's criminal convictions, together with Parliament's view, made it no longer tenable for him to continue as opposition leader, and that the decision was necessary to uphold the rule of law and the integrity of Parliament. Singh was convicted on 2 counts of lying to Parliament's Committee of Privileges and lost his High Court appeal in December last year, making the legal outcome final. The charges stem from testimony given during a 2021 inquiry into a false statement made in Parliament by then Workers' Party MP Raisa Khan. The Prime Minister has asked the Workers' Party to nominate another elected MP to serve as the next opposition leader, who must not have been implicated in the earlier inquiry. China's top diplomat said Thursday that a visit by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to Beijing marked a turning point in the two countries' long acrimonious relationship. Now, the first visit by a Canadian leader to Beijing in 8 years was a turning point and a symbol for the relationship between two countries, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said in a statement. Ties between China and Canada withered in 2018 when Canada arrested the daughter of Huawei's founder on a U.S. warrant and China's retaliatory detention of 2 Canadians on espionage charges. The two countries imposed tit-for-tat tariffs on each other's exports in the years that ensued, with China also being accused of interfering in Canada's elections. Carney, who has also said ties between the two sides are shifting, met with top Chinese leaders in Beijing on Thursday as he pulls away from traditional ally, the United States. Canada has been hit especially hard by US President Donald Trump's steep tariffs on steel, aluminium, vehicles and lumber, prompting a change of heart. The last time Chinese and Canadian leaders formally met was when then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau visited Beijing in 2017. Beijing said this week it attaches high importance to Carney's visit. Former Conservative Party leadership candidate Robert Jenrick defected to Nigel Farage's right-wing Reform UK on Thursday, hours after he was sacked from the Conservatives when his plans to switch allegiance were leaked. Jenrick joins at least a dozen prominent Conservatives who have joined Reform, which is ahead of both Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour Party and Kemi Badenoch's Conservatives in the opinion polls. He will become the second sitting lawmaker to have switched to Farage's party, giving it 6 seats in Britain's 650-seat parliament. Earlier in the day, Badenoch announced that Jenrick has been sacked from her policy team and suspended from the party after she received evidence showing that he was planning to quit the party. Jenrick lost to Badenoch in the 2024 contest to lead the main opposition party after their crushing national election defeat, and was then in an effort to reunite the party given the role of justice spokesperson. Jenrick used that position to build a personal profile on key issues like immigration and crime. Many saw it as a platform for a future challenge to Badenoch's leadership as the Conservatives sought to counter a dramatic loss of support to Reform UK.
Dunia digital penuh dengan kandungan ganas, eksploitasi kanak-kanak dan buli cyber berleluasa di luar kawalan. Akta Keselamatan dalam Talian 2025 atau AMSA dikuatkuasa untuk melindungi rakyat. Pengguna boleh bertindak atas kandungan yang berisiko. Setiap laporan yang dibuat, platform digital wajib bertindak pantas terhadap penyalahgunaan digital. Internet kini lebih selamat untuk kanak-kanak dan keluarga kita.
Welcome back. At least 10 people were killed in Israeli strikes across Gaza on Thursday, including senior members of Hamas and a police officer. Medical officials and residents reported senior local figure Ashraf al-Khatib was killed in Nuseirat, along with a Hamas police officer in Gaza City. A Hamas source also said local commander Mohammad al-Holi was killed in Deir al-Balah on the same day. The Israeli military has not commented on the incidents. Hamas condemned the attack on the al-Holi family but did not confirm Mohammad al-Holi's role in the group. Hamas accused Israel of violating the ceasefire that had been in place since October and attempting to reignite the conflict. The strikes came a day after the U.S. announced the start of the second phase of ceasefire talks. Israel and Hamas continue to accuse each other of breaching the truce and remain divided over key issues. More than 400 Palestinians have been reported killed since the ceasefire began in October. Now, the United Nations has warned that the reconstruction of Gaza cannot be delayed following years of war. UN Executive Director for Project Services, Jorge Moreira da Silva, described Gaza as facing total destruction after 2 years of conflict. He said residents are living in inhumane conditions with no proper sewage treatment, severe electricity shortages, and many in partially destroyed buildings at risk of collapse. Da Silva highlighted urgent needs, including clearing 60 million tons of rubble, removing unexploded ordnance, and restoring water and electricity networks. He also called for lifting restrictions on aid entry to allow humanitarian organizations to bring in essential equipment. The UN, European Union and World Bank estimate that more than $52 billion will be needed for Gaza's recovery. Social media companies have collectively deactivated nearly 5 million accounts belonging to Australian teenagers just a month after a world-first ban on children under 16 took effect. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said platforms had so far removed about 4.7 million accounts held by under 16s to comply with the law that went live on 10th December.
We can announce that this is working. 4.7 million accounts gone, suspended, stopped, meaning that young people, instead of being on their devices during these school holidays, have been cycling around facilities such as this, have been reading books, have been engaging with their friends and family on a one-to-one basis, interacting, making an enormous difference to them. It has given as well parents that peace of mind of not worrying about what their children are looking at online.
The implementation of the ban is being closely watched by regulators worldwide. Malaysia, Indonesia and France have all said they will introduce similar laws, while some European nations and US are also discussing following Australia. Meta previously said it took down some 550,000 underage accounts from its Instagram, Facebook and Threads. All companies that were initially covered by the ban said they would comply. The United States says Iran has halted 800 death sentences for protesters following pressure from President Donald Trump as Gulf countries sought to reduce the risk of US military action against Tehran. The White House said while Washington is holding off on military action for now, all options remain on the table if violence against protesters continues. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Trump warned Iran of serious consequences if the killings of anti-government demonstrators continued and confirmed the scheduled executions had been stopped. Iran has been rocked by some of the largest anti-government protests in its history, triggered by an economic crisis and heavy-handed government measures, including internet blackouts. Human rights group Iran Human Rights reports that at least 3,428 protesters have been killed, with the actual number likely higher. The US also announced new sanctions against several Iranian officials, adding to existing sanctions tied to Tehran's nuclear program. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado said she presented her Nobel Peace Prize medal to US President Donald Trump during a meeting in Washington on Thursday. Machado told reporters she offered the medal as a symbolic recognition of what she described as Trump's commitment to freedom, but she did not clarify whether he accepted it. The Nobel Committee has emphasized that peace prizes cannot be revoked, shared or transferred once awarded, meaning the laureate status remains with Machado regardless of any gesture. Trump has long publicly sought a Nobel Peace Prize and praised his record, but he has also expressed doubts about Machado's ability to lead Venezuela, even as Washington supports a political transition. Machado, who won the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts to promote democracy in Venezuela, used the visit to urge U.S. lawmakers and the administration to support democratic reforms in her country. The meeting at the White House followed closed-door discussions, with both sides highlighting the need for democratic governance in Venezuela amid ongoing political turmoil. Brazil's former President Jair Bolsonaro has been transferred to prison, where he will continue serving his sentence under what the court described as more favorable conditions. The 70-year-old was sentenced last year to 27 years in jail for orchestrating a failed coup attempt after losing the 2022 election to President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Bolsonaro has been held at police headquarters in Brasilia, but was moved on Thursday to the Papuda Penitentiary Complex, where he will be kept in a special detention unit separate from other inmates. According to the court, the new unit is larger and includes basic facilities, including a kitchen and private outdoor area. Supreme Court judge criticized complaints about detention conditions, calling attempts to discredit the legal process unacceptable. Bolsonaro's family criticized the transfer, calling it harsh, while his lawyers continue to seek house arrest on health grounds. He was moved to prison after allegedly damaging his electronic ankle monitor, which the court viewed as an attempt to escape. Pakistan on Thursday sought further details and clarification from Washington after the US said it will pause immigration visa processing of citizens from 75 nations, including from Pakistan. A US State Department spokesperson a day earlier said that the Trump administration is suspending immigrant visa processing for nationals of these nations as part of Washington's intensified immigration crackdown. The pause, set to take effect on 21st January, will impact applicants from Latin American countries, Balkan countries, South Asian countries, and those from many nations in Africa, West Asia, and the Caribbean. Pakistani Foreign Minister spokesman Tahir Hussain Andrabi told a news conference that Islamabad was in touch with U.S. authorities to ascertain further details. The move, however, does not impact U.S. visitor visas, which have been in the spotlight, given the U.S. is hosting the 2026 World World Cup and 2028 Olympics. Trump's pursuit of an immigration crackdown has seen aggressive tactics, sending federal agents to major U.S. cities and sparking violent confrontations with both migrants and U.S. citizens. Coming up next, the U.S. signs deal with Taiwan to lower tariffs. The U.S. has signed a deal with Taiwan to lower tariffs on Taiwanese goods while boosting investment by the island's semiconductor and technology companies in America. Under the agreement, tariffs on Taiwanese products will drop to 15%, down from a 20% reciprocal rate aimed at addressing trade imbalances and unfair practices. Sector-specific tariffs on auto parts, timber, lumber and wood products will also be capped at 15%, while generic pharmaceuticals and certain natural resources will face no reciprocal duties. Taiwanese chip and tech firms are expected to invest at least $250 billion in the U.S., expanding capacity in advanced semiconductors and artificial intelligence. Taiwan will also provide credit guarantees of at least $250 billion to support additional investment and strengthen the U.S. semiconductor supply chain. The Taiwanese government confirmed that the new tariff arrangements will not add to existing duties, easing concerns for local industries. China's population policy is emerging as a key part of its economic strategy as Beijing rolls out its most wide-ranging push to boost a flagging birth rate, with official population data set to show a fourth consecutive annual drop. Now, Beijing is looking at a total potential cost of around 180 billion yuan in 2026 to boost births as authorities grapple to undo decades of strict population control that helped tackle poverty but reshaped Chinese families. Key costs are the National Child Subsidy, which was introduced for the first time last year, as well as a pledge that women throughout pregnancy have no out-of-pocket expenses in 2026, with all medical costs, including in vitro fertilization, fully reimbursable under insurance. China's population has been shrinking since 2022 and is aging rapidly, complicating Beijing's plan to boost domestic consumption and rein in debt. Hundreds of millions of people are set to leave the workforce at a time when pension budgets are already stretched. China's 15th five-year plan, starting this year, pledges to refine pro-birth policies, including promoting positive views on marriage and childbearing. It will also lower the costs of childbirth, parenting and education through subsidies and personal income tax credits. A Belhara armed frigate purchased from France arrived in Greece on Thursday, one of 4 new frigates as the country looks to modernize its armed forces. Athens agreed in 2021 to procure 3 new Belhara frigates for about €3 billion as it aims to replace old vessels that have operated for more than 30 years in its navy. Greece has said it will spend about €28 billion by 2036 to modernize its armed forces as it tries to keep pace with its historic rival Turkey. Greece is spending about 3% of its gross domestic product on defense, nearly double the average in the EU in 2025. European states are increasing their defense spending due to regional tensions such as Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. The US has also pressured NATO allies to increase defense spending, which Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis supported. Mitsotakis, President Konstantinos Tassoulas and Defense Minister Nikos Dendias boarded the frigate as it headed to dock at the Salamina naval base. It was escorted by various vessels, including the armoured cruiser Georgios Avaros, which played a major role in the historic events in Greece. European countries have sent small numbers of troops to Greenland as Denmark moves ahead with plans for a larger permanent NATO presence. Now, the move supports Denmark and follows failed talks with the US over rising tensions about this strategically important island. US President Donald Trump has repeated claims that Denmark cannot adequately protect Greenland and has not ruled out using force to take control of the strategically located, mineral-rich island. Denmark and Greenland have firmly rejected the idea, saying that the territory is not for sale and warning that threats of force are irresponsible. Denmark's defense minister said NATO will be able to plan a broader and longer-term presence in Greenland through 2026, calling Arctic security a collective responsibility of the alliance. Several European countries, including Germany, France, Sweden, Norway, Finland and the Netherlands, are sending personnel to prepare for larger exercises later this year. The White House said recent talks were productive, but added that European troop deployments would not change Washington's position on Greenland. Russian archaeologist Alexander Butyagin appeared in a Warsaw court on Thursday as his defense team filed a motion to recuse the judge from his extradition case. Poland detained Butyagin in December after Ukraine accused him of unauthorized excavation and plundering historical artifacts in Crimea. Butyagin's attorney Adam Domansky told reporters outside the courthouse that the defense had concerns about the judge's impartiality. The lawyer confirmed that Butyagin had given an explanation to the court but did not agree to extradition. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that it had called in Polish Ambassador Krzysztof Krajewski on Monday and told him that the Ukrainian charges were absurd. The statement said that Butyagin, an employee of the renowned Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, had been working in Crimea for decades, and all his finds have been transferred to a museum there. Ukraine says it is defending not only its people and territory, but also its cultural heritage in the war against Russia. It has accused Russia of taking precious historical items from Crimea, which Moscow annexed in 2014, and from other parts of the country following Russia's invasion of its neighbor in February 2022. Now, Ghana will scrap long-term mining investment stability agreements and double royalties under sweeping reforms as bullion prices surge. The regulator of Africa's top gold producer told Reuters. Now, Isaac Tando, CEO of Ghana Minerals Commission, said that the moves are part of a sweeping overhaul intended to balance investor confidence with a push to capture more revenue. Ghana's Stability and Development Pacts traditionally lock in royalty and tax terms for 5 to 15 years in exchange for large investments, typically $300 million to $500 million for mine builds and expansions. Beneficiary miners must extend mine life by at least 3 years and grow output beyond 10%, among others, to qualify for renewal. Newmont, Anglo Gold Ashanti and Gold Fields are currently under stability agreements. Tando said the changes to be codified in law mean Newmont's Stability Pact, which expired in December, will not be renewed, and similar arrangements held by Anglo Gold Ashanti and Gold Fields will be phased out when they lapse in 2027. African nations are tightening mining rules to cash in on high prices, often raising royalties and local content demands. These changes have periodically sparked clashes with global miners over costs and contract certainty. Still to come in sports, Sinner to meet Gaston in Australian Open first round, Sabalenka to play French wildcard.
Perlawanan bola sepak Piala Malaysia. Perlawanan pusingan 16 dengan penampilan sulung pasukan Universiti Malaya Damansara United bertemu Terengganu FC Isnin 19 Januari 4:15 petang di saluran OK dan Sukan RTM. Juga penstreaman langsung di RTM Klik.
Defending champion Yannick Sinner will meet French world number 94 Hugo Gaston in the first round of the Australian Open in his bid for a third straight title at Melbourne Park. Men's top seed Carlos Alcaraz will play 79th ranked Australian Adam Walton in the Spaniard's quest for a first Australian Open crown to become the youngest man to complete the career Grand Slam. At the draw ceremony at Melbourne Park on Thursday, 10-time champion Novak Djokovic, the fourth seed, was bracketed next to 71st ranked Spaniard Pedro Martinez for the opening round of the Grand Slam starting on Sunday. Djokovic, who is gunning for an all-time record 25th Grand Slam title to break clear of a tie with Margaret Court, could face rising Italian Lorenzo Musetti, the fifth seed, in the quarterfinals before a possible semi-final against Sinner. Italian Sinner has a smooth first week, but fans will hope it includes a third-round matchup with 28th-seeded Brazilian João Fonseca. Should be exciting. 19-year-old talent proving fit following recent back problems. Alcaraz has home hero Alex de Minaur in his quarter of the draw, but the Australian sixth seed must pass a tricky first test against Italian Matteo Berrettini, the Wimbledon runner-up in 2021. Meanwhile, in the women's draw, top seed Aryna Sabalenka is set to take on French wildcard Tiansoa Rakotomanga. Twice champion Sabalenka has few threats in her quarter of the draw before a potential semi-final against third seed Coco Gauff, who opens against 55th ranked Uzbek Kamila Rakimova. Women's second seed Iga Swiatek will meet qualifier in the first round, but her path to a first Australian Open title and seventh Grand Slam crown overall could mean a crunch quarterfinal against the resurgent Kazakh Elina Rybakina. Former Wimbledon champion Rybakina, the fifth seed, looms as a dangerous proposition after clinching her maiden WTA Finals trophy in November in a major return to form. Rybakina meets unseeded Slovene Kaja Juvan in the first round. Defending champion Madison Keys will face unseeded Ukrainian Alexandra Olenivkova, but the American ninth seed has a tough road to the title. Keys could meet a sixth-seeded compatriot Jessica Pegula in the fourth round before a potential quarterfinal against another American in fourth seed Amanda Anisimova. And moving on to motorsports, Nasser Al-Attiyah remained on course for a sixth career Dakar Rally win in the top car category after last year's runner-up Hent Latigan hit more trouble in the Saudi Arabian desert on Thursday. Now, the Qatari, driving for the Dacia Sand Riders, finished the stage with an 8-minute 40-second lead over closest rival Nani Roma in a factory Ford. Ford's Matthias Ekstrom won Thursday's 346-kilometre stage from Bisha to Al-Hinakia, the Swedes' third stage win of this year's event. Al-Attiyah had started the day 12 minutes clear of Latigan, who had slipped back after 2 nightmare days of mechanical misfortune and navigational errors. 9 times World Rally champion Sebastian Loeb was third overall, but 18 minutes and 37 seconds behind his leading teammate, with Ekstrom fourth. Ekstrom's teammate and fourth-time Dakar winner Carlos Sainz was third on the stage and fifth overall. In the motorcycle category, reigning champion Daniel Sanders continued despite a broken collarbone, but the Australian had dropped out of contention. American Ricky Brabec relinquished the lead for strategic reasons, with Argentina's Luciano Benavides taking over at the top for KTM. Benavides is 23 seconds clear, but will be at a disadvantage in the starting Friday ahead of Brabec. And that wraps up World Today this time round. In our top story, Japan opposition parties form a new united bloc. Until next time, I'm Mohana Priya. Salam Malaysia Matani. Thank you for your company.